Welcome back to another video, guys, and in today's video we're going to talk about what you should be doing in your games of chess to actually improve and gain more rating. I'm going to share with you my 5 questions checklist that you should ask yourself before you make any move in a game of chess. And I guarantee to you, if you ask those 5 questions before making any move, you are going to stop blundering and you're going to find the best moves much more easily. But hey, before we move on to the video, I'd like to ask you this question. Are you subscribed to the channel? If you are not yet subscribed, click the button down below and subscribe to the channel for more. I post videos pretty much every day here, giving tips for chess improvement in general. So let's get started. So I chose a game here that in an opening that I taught you guys in a video recently, which is the 4 Knights Scotch. And it's an opening that is very easy to learn and very simple, and you can never mess up by playing this opening. And why do we study openings in the first place? We study them so we can make the first few moves of the game without thinking too much, because we already know in advance what moves are good and why they are good. So we know the reasons why behind the moves, and we don't have to be thinking and making decisions right from the start. So we can save up some time. That's why we study theory in advance. So we know that e4 is a good move because it opens up the diagonals for our bishop, for our queen. It controls the central square, and it's a very good move to start the game. And your opponent is going to reply with moves that are typical. So this part of the game, you're not thinking too much. You're relying on your theory. So you should be studying some openings, some lines, so you know pretty much what to do in the first, I don't know, 5 to 10 moves of the game maybe. So you can end up with a nice position. So you're not losing out of the opening. So these moves, you don't think too much when you play them. You already prepared those moves beforehand. So you already know that you're going to play, for example, knight f3 here. So you can develop a piece, attack this pawn, prepare, developing your pieces here to prepare for castling later on. And your opponent is going to defend the pawn here by playing knight to c6. Pretty typical move. Knight to c3 is the typical move from the 4 knights defense, and knight f6, this configures the opening, and we push d4. This is the 4 knights Scotch. So we know what's going on here. We already studied this line, so this is pretty much theory. So we're not going to ask too many questions here. Opponent's gonna take, we're gonna take back, and now they play bishop to c5. And here is where you're gonna ask yourself the first question. And the first question you should ask yourself, the first of the 5 questions you should ask yourself, the first one is, what did my opponent last move do? So you have to assess the position, evaluate the position. So after every move your opponent makes, if you are out of theory, of course, you have to ask yourself this question: what did my opponent last move do? If this move is different from your theory, if this move is deviating from theory, if it's a move that is a novelty or something that you have never seen before, then you should ask yourself this question. So this is not a novelty, this is a typical move. But let's imagine you are not familiar with this. You should be asking yourself this question: what did my opponent last move do? So here we have this knight in the center of the board. It's being defended currently by the queen, but just by the queen. And we have now 2 pieces attacking it. So they are actually threatening to take this knight. And how do I know that? Well, I just asked myself this question: what did my opponent last move do? So they developed the bishop, clearing the way for castling, and they are attacking my knight. So I have to address this immediately. So why do we ask ourselves this question? We ask ourselves this question so we can address immediate threats. So this move is creating an immediate threat, and some things in the position, they have to be addressed immediately. That's why this is the first question we ask, because if there's an immediate threat, we have to respond to that threat before doing anything else. So I cannot simply think, oh, okay, I'm going to develop a piece here. It's not going to work, because if you do that, you're just going to lose a piece. So this is an immediate threat you have to address right away. So that's why this is the first question you should ask yourself. The first question, okay, so this is the question you should ask yourself: what did my opponent last move do? So in this case, they're attacking our knight. So we have some options. We can go ahead and trade this knight. We can, I don't know, drop it back. We can move it here and attack the bishop ourselves. Or we can just develop this bishop, defending the knight and developing a piece. There are many possibilities. You're going to study the theory and find out which one is the best. In this case, I think this is the best move because you're not only defending the knight, but you're also developing a piece at the same time. So this is a multi-purpose move. That's why we're going to go for this move, bishop to e3. We are now addressing the immediate threat. They cannot take this knight now. They're not threatening to take it, actually. If they do take it, you can just recapture and it will be okay for you. You're not going to lose a piece. Okay? So this is the first question you should ask yourself. And of course, this is just the first, because the second question is, are there any immediate tactics that I can go for in this position? Are there any tactics that I can exploit? So in a game of chess, we should have two gears, a tactical gear and a strategical positional gear. So we're going to go for the tactical gear first and prioritize that, because if there's an immediate tactic in the position, we can win a piece or a pawn. That's going to put us in a winning position and we can win the game. So tactics pretty much win games in chess. So that's why we're going to prioritize tactics. So we're going to look at the position and see, are there any immediate tactics that I can go for here? And if there are any tactics, you should go for that. If you can win a pawn, or if you find a combination that you can win a pawn or a piece, you should definitely go for that first before, like, let's say, developing a piece or improving your position strategically or positionally. You should go for the tactics first. And if there aren't any tactics, then you're going to shift your gear to the positional gear and then try to find a move that just improves your position. So the second question, after you assess the position, is look for tactics. So if your opponent is not aware here, we have a discovered attack here. I showed you this in another video. If your opponent is not aware here, we can just move this knight, take this other knight, threatening the queen, and discovered attack on this bishop. So if your opponent is not aware and just castled here, the good move would be just to drop this bishop back, so it's going to be defended. If you just move, if they just castle here, this bishop is actually loose, it's undefended. So you can go ahead and take this knight, and by doing so, you're just attacking the queen, and these two guys are staring at each other. So if they take your bishop, you can just go ahead and take the queen. They're not going to let you do that. You know, so danger levels, just like Levy says, they're going to take your knight. They're not going to take like this, because that allows you to just take the queen and remove even more pieces from the board, and that's good for you because you're now up a piece. They're going to take with the b pawn, and by doing so, you can just capture this bishop and you're winning a piece and hitting this rook at the same time. So you're basically a piece up here because you saw a tactic. So when they make a move like this one, for example, they castle, you have to ask yourself, do I have any immediate tactics that I can go for? And if you do, in this case, you have a tactic, you have to go for that. And after they take, you take the bishop, and here you're just winning this game. You are up a piece. All right, so after this move, black's gonna push this pawn to d6. And here, remember the first question? The first question is you have to assess the position and ask yourself the question, what did my opponent last move do? And they are actually threatening to take your bishop. So you have to do something immediately to put your bishop to safety. So we're going to just drop the bishop back to e3. Now the bishop is safe. And we can now think about the next moves that we can go for. And if the opponent plays, let's say, bishop to e6, this is not immediately threatening anything. This pawn is defended, so there's nothing they're doing here, just developing a piece. And you are up a piece, so you should be looking for trades here. But now you should shift your gear to the positional gear. This move is not threatening anything immediately, and you don't have any immediate tactics to win a piece or a pawn or anything. So if there are no tactics in the position, then you should ask yourself the third question. And the third question is shift your gear to a positional, strategical standpoint. And now you're going to ask yourself the question, how can I improve my position overall? What are the moves that I can go for that make my position better? Or maybe you should ask it a little bit differently. Is there any piece that is unhappy that I can make happier? Is there any piece that is not very active and I can make it more active? So try to make pieces that are not very active more active. Since we are still in a kind of an opening stage of the game, not even a middle game yet, to be really honest, We still have to castle so we can develop this bishop or maybe this queen, because these pieces are very sad sitting at their, respective starting position. So maybe I can improve my position by just developing a piece and making it more active, making a sad piece happier. So I'm going to develop this bishop, and I'm going to play here bishop to e2, so I clear the way for castling. And this is another developing move. Castling is indeed a developing move because we're going to put our king to safety and develop this rook to a more active square. So this is a good move that we can go for in this position. It's just improving our position overall. Okay, so here let's imagine black goes for queen, rook to e8 in this position. We're going to ask ourselves the same question again. What is this move doing? Well, immediately, no immediate things that we have to react to right away. Are there any tactics in the position? Not really. Nothing that we can go for and win any piece or pawns or anything. So let's look for positional improvements. How can we improve the position here? Well, the obvious move is to just castle, so we're going to do that. We're going to castle, and suddenly our position is better, right? So that's why we go for these positional moves. After we look for tactics and we don't find anything, we go for that. And now black plays d5, and now we have some tension. The pawns are staring at each other, so we have to address that. And here, we should ask ourselves the question, what is my opponent's last move doing? So they are actually threatening to go here and take our pawn, maybe in the future trying to maybe push and fork our pieces, not right now, but maybe they can set up for that in the future. So we have to be aware whenever we have pieces in forkable spots, so we should always be aware for moves that maybe in the future in a ideal world can actually fork our pieces, and we can lose our advantage in a blink of an eye. So here we have to address this issue. We have to do something about this. Maybe they are threatening to take this pawn now because it's just defended by one piece. So we have to do something about this. Maybe we can take it, and after they take, I don't know, maybe we can continue with that. And that's when we should actually look for other situations. So the fourth question we should ask ourselves here is, how can my opponent respond to my move? So now I should think about some candidate moves and try to calculate a little bit. So we have to do some little calculation, not too much, just like 2 or 3 moves ahead, so we can see how the position is going to end up, if we like it or not. So maybe we can take here, and after maybe pawn takes, there's not much to this. Another move that we can go for maybe here is try to defend this pawn, or maybe play the bishop here to defend the pawn. But then maybe they take and we trade queens. That's not bad for us because we're winning. We have a piece up, so we are happy to trade. But another move that is very interesting is just pushing the pawn. We cannot just defend or take. We have another way to address attacked pieces. We can actually move them like this. We can push the pawn and hit this knight. So maybe we can push here. So maybe black was going to respond, the most obvious move. So that's why we asked this fourth question. What is the most obvious response from black here? What is the most obvious response that my opponent could go for? So maybe after I move here, they're going to play the knight here. And maybe I can go for a trade. Trades are good for me. So if I take, they take. I can actually trade queens here. They might take back with one of the rooks. Maybe we can go and play one of the rooks here to the central file, or maybe, yeah, we can do something like that. So I think this position is great because it's going to encourage further trades, and this is actually good for us. That's why we might go for e5 here, hitting the knight, and after the knight goes to e4, we can actually trade. And after we trade, in this case, they're going to take, and we can go ahead and trade queens. This is really good for us in this position, okay? So that's pretty much it for this part. So we have just one final question that we can go for here, and it's, am I blundering anything? This is just a series of questions, actually. The fifth and final question is this move safe? So whenever I consider a candidate move, I have to ask myself a question, is this move safe? Can I actually go for this? Am I blundering anything? So I usually ask myself in this a specific order. I ask myself the question, is my king safe? Is my king getting checkmated? Because, I mean, we have some back rank issues here, but this square is pretty much guarded by like all the pieces here. Everything is guarding this square, so we're not going to be back rank checkmated here, but we can always blunder back rank mate. You always know that. You have always been through that. I have been through that. So is my king safe? Is my queen safe? In this position, queens are off the board, so we don't have to worry about that. But always ask yourself this question. Is my king safe? Is my queen safe? Are my pieces defended? This bishop is undefended, is loose, so we should be aware of maybe infiltrations that can happen here. Not possible now because the bishop is covering, but we should always be aware of those possibilities, okay? So always ask yourself the question, can I actually make this move? So maybe, for example, you're considering playing this move right here, but then you might be blundering this pawn because it becomes undefended. But in reality, what happens is, if you go for this move and your opponent takes the pawn, they think they might be winning a pawn here, you can actually maybe trade rooks here and play this move, b3. And now suddenly this bishop is trapped, right? It's the bishop's coffin. So if they take, you just take back. You're just going to probably come here and try to take this bishop. This bishop is trapped and they are losing one more piece. This is very bad for them. So you can actually go for this move. You're not going to blunder a pawn here if you go for rook 8 to d1. They cannot take the pawn here because they are actually going to blunder the bishop to this move b3. That is actually trapping the bishop. But if you want to play safe, you don't want to blunder any pawns, let's say potentially, you can go for rook f to d1. And that's going to encourage maybe some further trades. If black takes, you just take back. Again, they cannot take here because you can just play b3 and win another piece. There's nothing they can do here. This bishop is actually lost. So that's why you should ask yourself this question. Can I actually make this move? Is this square available to me or not? So this is the fifth question you should ask yourself. So just to remember the order of questions, first, you have to assess the position and ask yourself the question, what does my opponent last move do? Is this actually threatening anything? Do I have to immediately defend something or move some piece away? And then you should ask yourself the second question, is there any immediate tactics that I can go for and win a pawn or a piece? If there are, I should go for them before. And then if there are no tactics in the position, then you should move to the third question, which is the shifting of the gear. You shift your gear to the positional gear, and then you develop a piece or improve your position. Try to find a move that makes your pieces more active and improves your position overall. After that, you should ask yourself a question about your opponent's possible responses to your move. So after I make this move, what is my opponent probably going to do? What is the most obvious response from black against this move that I'm about to make? And of course, before you make your move, you make a blunder check and ask yourself a series of questions. Is my king safe? Is my queen safe? Are my pieces defended? Am I undefending any piece by making this move? Because sometimes we undefend pieces by making moves, so you should be aware of that too. Is this square available for my piece? Or maybe I'm like just making a one move blunder. So all these questions are very useful for you to stop blundering your pieces and win more games. And you might be wondering like, wow, how can I do that in like a blitz game that is just 3 minutes or 5 minutes? Well, that's very hard to do in a short time control. That's why we should play rapid games or longer time controls so you can have more time to ask yourself those questions. And of course, as you do this more and more often, you're going to be, let's say, remembering those patterns, and you can do that process in a quicker way. And of course, you develop some instincts and pattern recognition, and this is actually very helpful for blitz games, bullet games that are quicker, and you don't have much time to ask yourself all those questions. Of course, guys, this is just my opinion. I'd like to hear your opinions in the comment section down below. And if you liked this video, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. And as always, I see you guys in the next video.